Joining us now with more is David Kraft. He's the director of the Nuclear Energy Information Service. Obviously some damage to some of the nuclear reactors there near the scene of that earthquake. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
You know, it's hard to, they're saying everything's okay, really not a danger. How much can we believe from the Japanese government? What's your take on the whole thing?
We've been following the communications in Japan since Friday night, actually.
Yeah.
We have some folks who are over there doing translations of the Japanese media as well as the press releases, attending the conferences and whatnot. We were beginning to notice as early as Friday night that we were starting to get the boilerplate stuff out of the government and out of the nuclear industry people who were speaking up. Things like, we're in control here, don't listen to any other media except us, forget Facebook. That was worrisome to begin with. But then when you started piecing together some of the details that they were releasing, which are becoming less and less, it was painting a very frightening picture. They're in deep trouble. Just on the way over here before I came, I downloaded another report. In the last couple of days, reactor number 1, reactor number 3 experienced explosions. You may have already reported that. I just got a report that reactor number 2 has lost all on-site coolant. They're losing it. The 3 operating reactors are going down.
The fact that they're pouring seawater in, does that mean they're giving up ever using these in the future? Are these done?
When you put seawater into these kind of reactors, it does a lot of corrosive damage. They're writing it off. They're probably not going to be able to resuscitate.
So when you hear explosions, people think, oh, Chernobyl. But we're not to that point, and may not get to that point. If they don't get to that point, does that mean that the structures of these nuclear plants is a relative success?
Relative success, yes, but when you take a look at the fact that you have a $2 billion tea kettle that's no longer useful, it's obviously a disaster from that standpoint, and the radiation that's been getting out.
Well, that's what I'm wondering about. I mean, when we think of Chernobyl, we think, there's a whole dead zone around Chernobyl to this day. Is that what we might be seeing here, or are the levels of radiation not near what we saw there?
It'll be a lot different than Chernobyl. I know people like to use that as a reference point because it was so catastrophic, and I understand that. But each of these reactors has a unique design. It's going to have its own unique problems. In this case, you do have radiation that is leaking off-site. A lot's going to depend on the next 2 days as to what types of isotopes get out. That'll determine the kind of cleanup you're going to have to do. What we've really been concerned about from the beginning, though, we hear lots about the reactors. What you don't hear about are the spent fuel pools. These are the glorified swimming pools that are also on site that have accumulated all of the previous used fuel that is no longer useful to produce electricity. So you're talking, in this case, I was downloading some information, somewhere on the order of nearly 2,000 tons of this material. Now, Illinois, largest nuclear state in the United States, since its beginning, has accumulated about 8,000 tons. So we're talking a sizable portion of nuclear waste on site, and we're getting reports that although they have cooling water in the pools, it's not circulating. This is not good.
And we are built on a fault line, are we not? Or at least could be impacted by the New Madrid fault.
Well, for me, this was one of the astonishing parallels that's going on here. The reactors that we're talking about in Japan that have failed are very, very old reactors. They came online from 1971 to 1979. They're of a design that General Electric put out there called the Mark I containments. These are the very first generation of reactors out there. It just so happens we have 4 of them here in Illinois. 2 of them are at the Dresden Nuclear Reactor, which is southwest of Chicago, about 55 miles near the town of Morse. And 2 are at the Quad Cities reactors near Moline on the Mississippi River. These came online even before these Japanese reactors did. What's even more worrisome is the fact that the American regulators have decided to extend the operating license of these old reactors an additional 20 years at this point. So we're talking about, well, how many of you drove here today in your 1970 Ford Galaxy? I mean, let's talk about that. This is what we're looking at here. You're talking
But that New Madrid fault is not nearly as active as we're looking at in Japan. They experience earthquakes quite a bit.
It's a different kind of earthquake, first of all, because the kinds of earthquakes you experience in the continental interiors are different than the kinds of faults that you have in the Pacific Rim and on the slippage zones. But this year, in December, happens to be the 200th anniversary of the last time that the New Madrid fault did activate itself. The the geologists who study this estimate that the potential power then was about an 8.1 on the Richter scale. The earthquake we had the other day was an 8.9. I think they just upgraded it to 9.0. Now, as you leap a number on the Richter scale, you're talking about 10 times more energy. So this is a very significant thing because the New Madrid fault is, in fact, very close to these reactors.
Well, David Kraft from the Nuclear Energy Information Service, thank you for your perspective this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on.
Let's go check out the weather. Hey, Paul.